we've been talking a lot about how China will benefit from our Afghan withdrawal. But they're not alone. The situation in Afghanistan is also looking to be a boon for Iran, who is restarting fuel exports to the Taliban that were disrupted during the U.S. involvement in the country. Meanwhile, there are now growing concerns that China is looking to deepen its ties in Afghanistan following the Biden administration's mishandling of our U.S. withdrawal from the nation. Joining us now to talk about all this and what it means, the author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War, Chang. Gordon, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
So much, Lindsay.
All right, so in a new Politico report, a former State Department official is warning that the Taliban could sell data that has been left behind from the U.S. military operations to China. I mean, this is what they want. How much of a concern is that for you?
This should be a big concern. You got to remember that when we lost that helicopter in the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound, Pakistan sold that helicopter, which actually had some quite sophisticated equipment. They sold it to China. And so China is used to getting very important pieces of data as well as important pieces of equipment from their friends in that part of the world. So they've had ties with the Taliban that have gone back before 9/11, even in the immediate wake of that horrific event. And so, yes, these ties are strong and they're longstanding.
So China has said that the U.S. Should be held accountable for what it is doing in Afghanistan, the humanitarian crisis there. I feel like this is just like them trying to save face, trying to change the narrative from what's happening in their own country with the Uyghur Muslims. How much are they going to use this power vacuum that is in the region created by our exit who step in and build these relationships with the Taliban, with Afghanistan?
Well, they're going to try their hardest, Lindsay. And the reason is that they are worried about what they could lose as well as with what they can gain. Remember, they've suffered 2 terrorist incidents in Pakistan in July of this month, 11 Chinese nationals killed. And part of their worry is that the success of the Afghan Taliban is going to energize other insurgents in the area. And so Beijing is working very closely with the Afghan Taliban to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't know how successful Beijing will be, but we got to remember that their ties are really dangerous. Remember that during the insurgency, China sold the Taliban rocket-propelled grenades, small arms, anti-aircraft missiles for use against Americans and NATO troops. So this is a very dangerous relationship for us, even if we're not going to be there.
You know, some of our allies like Britain are saying that that Afghanistan or China should turn to Russia and China to exercise a moderating influence over the Taliban. This is just disregarding the distrust that we have for these people. Is that a good idea? How are we looking to this? Because China is saying they're going to recognize the Taliban as the governing force in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think it's complete lunacy to think that China or Russia is going to help us in Afghanistan. I worry about the opposite. Got to remember that China sold nuclear weapons technology to the Pakistanis and then helped Pakistan sell it to Iran, Libya, and other countries. I'm worried about what China will do with proliferating nuclear technology to the Taliban, because the Taliban has sponsored terrorist events against the United States. They gave home to Al-Qaeda. So we have a lot to lose here, and China is malicious enough to do it.
You know, China, they play the long game, right? And they are looking to be the world power eventually. I think about just in 6 months, the Winter Olympics are coming up. How much should the U.S. get ahead of that? Should we be pulling back and not sending Team USA? I know that seems like something that's simple, but do we need to show them that we're serious about holding them accountable?
Well, we are a signatory to the Genocide Convention of 1948, which requires us to prevent and punish acts of genocide. China is committing acts of genocide as defined in Article 2 of that treaty. And so we have an obligation not to send our teams to the Beijing Olympics, because that is not preventing or punishing genocide. It's as simple as that. You know, we have a lot of people in the country say, oh, you know, we should have multilateral agreements, we should have treaties, we should have a rules-based order. Well, part of that is enforcing those treaties and rules and norms, and we have not been doing that.
Absolutely. You know, President Biden, he continues to remain confident that our national counterterrorism capabilities in the Middle East are strong. Many people have said that is not true. We have this over-horizon capabilities, but we have nowhere to operate from. Russia is saying that we cannot operate from there. Obviously, China is not, and with what's happening in Taiwan, how concerned are you about our capabilities in that part of the world right now?
Well, we got to remember that the Biden administration actually talked about this drone strike against ISIS-K. Well, that drone was sent from I think the UAE, which is really far away from Afghanistan. And when we talk about over the horizon, we're talking really over the horizon, which means that we don't have the capabilities there that the Biden team would like. When you're not in those countries, when you're not even close to those countries, remember, you got Iran, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Russia, they're not our friends. And so we don't have the capability to actually affect developments in Afghanistan or to punish the terrorists there that killed our people.
So Taiwan's foreign ministry is accusing China of wanting to emulate the Taliban, saying the island that Beijing claims as sovereign Chinese territory did not wish to be subject to communism or crime against humanity. Do you think there is any truth to these claims?
Well, clearly Beijing wants to take over Taiwan, they've said they're going to use force. So we're going to see China use force like the Taliban used force in Afghanistan. And this is going to be dangerous because we're not talking about just a group of insurgents. We're talking about a nation state which has a very large nuclear arsenal. And we've heard Chinese officials threaten to use that arsenal on a first use basis. So this could turn into a very ugly situation very fast. And it's important for us to maintain deterrence in the Taiwan Strait. And it was actually good for the Biden administration to send that Arleigh Burke destroyer and the Coast Guard cutter through the Taiwan Strait a few hours ago. We need to continue to do this to make sure China believes that it cannot take the island by force.
Absolutely. I want to press you on that a little bit more. How important is it that we continue that relationship? And do you think that that move is sending a strong enough message to China about our feelings on Taiwan?
Well, it's not a strong enough message. It's a step in the right direction. And it's absolutely critical that we defend Taiwan. First of all, Taiwan is strategic. It prevents the Chinese Navy and Air Force from surging into the Western Pacific and challenging us closer to home. But also, it's a democracy. And China is attacking not only our democracy, it's attacking the whole notion of democracies. And we cannot allow Beijing to absorb any vibrant democracy, especially one as important as Taiwan. I mean, right after the failure in Afghanistan, we can recover, but we can't recover if we lose Taiwan. This is not just in the region. This is around the world. Our treaty partners are looking at how we protect Taiwan.
Wow. And our allies are looking for what we're doing next. Always appreciate your insight. Thanks for being here with us tonight, Gordon.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Hi, Emma Reckenberg here. If you like this video, there's a whole lot more to see on Newsmax TV. You can watch for free right here on our YouTube live stream and be the first one here each time our experts break down real news. Just hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and stay with us on America's fastest growing cable news channel, Newsmax TV.